Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm Bret Boone, and today on the program, I sit down with an all-star and a World Series champion.
I sacrificed a lot to come to New York. I wanted to be a part of something special.
He made me a better player, a better person.
Roy Halladay is my guy, man. He was tough.
Welcome to the Bret Boone Podcast. I am Bret Boone. The San Francisco Giants are off to a great start. Today, our guest, he's a friend of the podcast. Haven't had him on for a while, but it's always fun to talk with our next guest. San Francisco Giants broadcaster, longtime broadcaster, legend in San Francisco, Mike Krukow. Kruk, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, Booney, I was beginning to think you didn't like me anymore, man. I wasn't hearing from you.
All right, San Francisco. Well, first of all, this division, which we'll get to in a minute, maybe the class of baseball this year. A year ago, I looked at this team. I looked at the starting rotation. I looked at the factors that I always factor in, which playing in San Francisco, I always think is a home field advantage because as a hitter, I never wanted to come there, whether it was Candlestick or the new stadium. It's just something different about that San Francisco air, and the home team, they're kind of like, all right, this is what we play in every day. So but a year ago, I thought, man, this San Francisco team with Snell at the head of that rotation. Second half, he had a great second half, but I thought they're going to be in it. They're going to be in the hunt in this division. I know the Dodgers are kind of the big brother in the room right now, but I thought they were a year ago. It didn't materialize, didn't work out. But the start, not only this division has gotten off to, but the San Francisco Giants, I thought you lost Snell. I'm like, how does that make you better? You brought on Adames. I see that you got Lee, the coveted free agent a year ago that got hurt. He's back and doing well. I didn't expect this start. Give me your thoughts.
Well, we went through 6 years of Farhan Zaidi's regime as the president, and he made some major contribution to this organization, and you're seeing a lot of it on the field right now in the younger players. It was a philosophy that was statistically based. It was, it was all about the launch angle and the 3-run homer and what the probability is of the plate in certain counts against a certain pitcher. And, there was a lot of data that took over just some good old-fashioned baseball IQ. And I think that when Buster Posey took over, the one thing that he knew better than anybody was how this ballpark played. And it was not a ballpark that was really built and designed for the 3-run homer. It was a ballpark that was built. And we all thought it was going to be a very offensive ballpark when they built it with the short porch to the right of center. But nobody knew, as it turned out, it turned out into that Oracle Park was a pitcher's haven. And what won games here was good defense, good base running, being able to put the ball in play with 2 strikes, go the opposite way, be a good 2-strike hitter, put the ball in play again. And that was what Buster Posey stressed when he first came over. He says, we're going to go back to doing this. And it was really kind of how they went into spring training. I mean, you'd stand around the batting cage. I'll never forget Dwayne Kuiper was down in spring training and during batting practice, and he saw Pat Burrell behind the batting cage, and he went up there to socialize. And Pat Burrell blew him off. And, Pat Burrell, he didn't blow off anybody. He's as gregarious a soul as I've ever seen. And he says, I'm working. And Kuiper stepped back, and he watched. And every pitch in batting practice, not just the first 2 or 3 pitches, every pitch he'd shout out of the situation. Runner at third, less than 2 outs. Runner at second, nobody out. Tie score, first and third. You've got a sinker baller up. How are you going to elevate? And he was shouting these situations out all BP long, all through it. And to this day, they're doing the same thing. So he made them aware, and every hitting coach that they had made those hitters aware that there's a situation and a technique and a plan for every pitch that's in a game. And they started to implement this. They had a great spring. They won 21 or 2 games or whatever it was, but everybody was just going, well, it's spring training, doesn't count.
Right.
Well, it counts when you're a young team. And what happened in spring training is that these young team members, these young kids who are just starting to develop into big leaguers, got that feeling that when they came to the ballpark, they would win, and it carried into the season. And that's what's been the difference on this club. Good 2-strike, 2-out hitters, great defense, pitchers that attack. They're not nibbling in strike one. They trust the defense. And high baseball IQ with the first step in defense and first step on the base pass, and that's what the difference is. They're playing baseball. I will, before I finish, I know I'm getting long-winded with this, but at one point last homestand, Mike Yastrzemski was walking off the field, and I said, "You having any fun?" He says, "Yeah, we're playing baseball again." And that kind of sums up what they're doing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like you being long-winded because I get sick of listening to myself give my takes on the show. I love having a different perspective on, but I'm with you. Today's game is definitely different. And you talk about launch angles and you talk about probabilities that the data we have today, without a doubt, I think gives me as a player an advantage because I can sort through and have more intel than we've ever had in our game. I was a stickler for that. Man, give me as much information as you can get me before a series. I'll decipher it as an individual. But what they have at their fingertips, I'm very envious of the players today and what they have available to them. But I think what you said about the Pat Burrell situation, I think that never goes away. And guys like me, probably guys like you, the simplest situation in today's game, runner on third, less than 2 outs. That is what Kruk, that used to send me home at night as a hitter. If I didn't get that situation done, that's where I lost sleep. I knew I was going to go 0 for 4. That's the game. Maybe I'll make a big play on defense. I'll turn a pivotal double play. We win the game. I can deal with an over. But the little things, leaving that runner on third, less than 2, striking out, that's a situation where you can't strike out as a hitter. At least that's got to be the mindset. The 2-strike hitting, I love that because as much as the game changes, those are the things that need to stay in place. Because if you hit an 18 hopper to shortstop in a second inning, non-situational, it doesn't really matter. It's a 1-1 game, and that run scores, that's 2-1. That may be the run. And I just see, and I don't know if it's me, but I see that situation, and I'm hypersensitive to it when it comes up. It's you've got to get this runner in. It is not okay to flail. Get in your aggressive stance and go. Now you get the count in your favor. You can take a shot here. But I always thought in those situations, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hit a sacrifice fly. I want to get something out over the plate and hit a sacrifice fly. I get deeper in the count. Oh, maybe I'll do some damage and hit one in the gap. I get to a 3-1, 3-0 count. Now I can let the dogs loose and be aggressive. But first and foremost, as a hitter, my job is to get that runner in from third. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm getting a little bit older, but I don't see the mindset of across the board in today's player.
Well, I don't either. And I think it gets back to doing something that, we all did as kids, when we were learning to play baseball, putting the ball in play was a big deal. That was the most important thing you learned as a young player. And then the higher up you got, the more you realize that, like you say, a ground ball to second baseman would run the third in a tie ball game or run down or run up. That's a big play. Get that runner in. That really explains the difference between this year's Giants and the last several years. And I agree with you. Look, I think this generation has the ability to get back on track once they're in a slump because of the statistical data about spin rate and about, your angles. If you're dropping your shoulder, if you're pulling your front shoulder out, that is all something that can be relayed to you through data. And, if you consider that a pitching coach, and now it's a trio of pitching coaches, or at least 2 pitching coaches on a staff, you have to be responsible for 2, sometimes 3, maybe even more languages. And it isn't the easiest thing to be able to communicate to your 13 pitchers, or really you should say your 25 pitchers, because you got 12 that are coming up at some point during the season. If one of those guys go out, it's difficult for one guy to remember on his muscle memory, on that pitcher's muscle memory, to be able to correct him. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You've got data that points you right to where the flaw is in their throwing motion or their hitting motion. and they can correct that. So that's invaluable. The amount of data that you have, if applied, can really make you a much more consistent, better player. But you still have to compete. You still have to play the game. You know, if you know coming into a game that a guy has 5 different motion or movements that he has that he's in control of, that he can throw at any given time, and 2 of them he's not getting over the plate, now you're concerned with 3 pitches. Now you're in a situation where you need to get a fly ball, and you're facing a guy with sink. How do you beat that? I mean, you have to have a plan to be able to beat that pitch in that situation. You've eliminated 2 pitches. You've made yourself giving yourself a better opportunity with it. But those are all baseball IQ situations. You still have to have that. And I think now, when we went through this complete decade of total statistical baseball, it's starting to come back. And I think what you're going to wind up here this year and then the next couple of years is a blend of data and old-time baseball that gives us a brand of baseball that might be the best we've ever seen.
Now, this is something I've heard. You can tell me if it's true or not. In the last several years, in this last kind of run in 5, 6, 7 years for the San Francisco Giants, there's a ton of success. Obviously, the 2010, 12, 14 under Bruce Bochy. And I'm a big guy for I love the historical value. I love having the ex-players around. I think it just adds to the overall experiment. I think the Yankees have done an unbelievable through my career. You know, when I used to go to Yankee Stadium and I'd see, at the time, I'd see Yogi Berra talking to somebody. I'd see Reggie Jackson leaning on a fungo. In my time, it was the Bernie Williams and the Jeters and the Paul O'Neills. But I think it's pretty awesome for a father and a son and maybe a grandpa to go to a game, and grandpa could tell the grandson stories about Yogi Berra. Dad's talking about Reggie Jackson, and then the current and then the kid is talking about, in my generation, Derek Jeter. Now it would be like an Aaron Judge. But I think that's cool, bringing the historical value back. And I was just wondering, did San Francisco lose that a little bit with all that success you had in the mid 2010s? I heard that the memorabilia wasn't up, the pictures weren't up. You didn't see the history of the Giants. You didn't see all those championships and all that success. And when Buster Posey came back in, he took it back to the roots and say, remember, this is what we did and you can do it again. Is that fake, or is that something I'm on?
Well, I mean, when you walk into the ballpark, the ballpark's a museum. I mean, there's Giants history walking whatever level you're in, wherever you look. I mean, outside the ballpark, you've got the Wall of Fame, and then the back right there between the ballpark and McCovey Cove, you've got all these inlaid plaques of perfect games and no hitters and Bond's 500th and 600th and 7th home run. So 700th home runs. So there's a lot of history. What had been in the clubhouse before Gabe Kapler and Farhan came over were pictures of celebrations of the 2010, 12, 14, 1954 Giants. And what Gabe wanted, he wanted to promote the player that was on the field. He wanted them to feel good about themselves. So I understand why they took that down. When Buster came back, some of those pictures went back up. But more importantly, when you walk through the door in the Giants clubhouse, now on display, inset in the wall there, are the 3 World Series trophies that the San Francisco Giants had won. And so right away, as a player, you're reminded every day of what the expectations are. It's not just to get to the playoffs. It's to win another flag. And so I think that was a small thing, but it was significant. I don't fault Gabe Kapler with his philosophy as to what he wanted to do to promote the everyday player, but just a different perspective. You're seeing more of the history within the clubhouse. Look, you know what it means to walk into a clubhouse with an organization that has history. You were raised in it. When your dad took you to Philadelphia and you felt the importance of history, and you saw your dad be on that 1980 team that meant more to that city than anything. And it set the expectation to a higher level from that day forward. And you realize that when you're a big league player, When you're a big league player with the Giants uniform on, there's 142 teams that wore that jersey before you did. So there's weight to that jersey. There's history. And, you know, what does a baseball player want to be more than anything? They want to be remembered. And there's your goal. Your goal is to make that uniform you wear proud, and your goal is to be remembered. And the way you do that is to win. And it's very subtle. It's not said aloud. It's said by suggestion with the history that's on the walls. And it's very cool. And now we're seeing more and more teams around baseball do that. And it just gives a player a sense of pride. And it also lets you understand just how much it means to your fan base for you to make them remember you. And that's one of the coolest things in sport.
And I think when you say the weight of that uniform being a lot, I agree with you, but I think it's a real positive and good weight to have as a player. You know, I played on some really good teams and some tough teams. And when I was in Cincinnati, we were really good in the early 90s. And I saw that big red machine everywhere, but I thought this is what we could do. I went on to I played a year with the Atlanta Braves, and I thought, wow, what at the end of the 90s, what they had done. We just go to and it was expected. I walked in that clubhouse. It's not like, well, maybe we'll get a playoff run this year. It's like, no, we're going to the World Series. It just matter whether we win or not. It was expected. And I thought that was really cool. I didn't feel added pressure. I felt like an obligation. I got to do my role to get to where we need to go. I look at what Buster's done since coming in at president of Players Ops. Dusty Baker's back in the fold. I think that's a big part of the San Francisco Giants history. I think it's pretty cool. You knew Buster well as a player. You knew what he was like. What's Buster like now in his new role in executive? Any changes or the same guy?
Well, yeah, some big changes. When we first saw him come into the clubhouse in 2009, I mean, he was like any other rookie. He was in awe. His eyes were big. But he watched, evaluated. He saw the speed of the game was different than any speed he'd ever seen. He saw the talent level was different than any speed he'd ever seen. And when he came back in 2010, he didn't start the season in the big leagues. He's in the minor leagues. When he got called back up, he was an old soul right away. He had a voice in the meetings right away. And, when you see a player that has that type of understanding of what is happening in the clubhouse and on the field at a young age, and will speak in a meeting and hold the attention and the respect of the veteran players, that's a pretty special player. But he was so work-oriented, goal-oriented that he dealt with media and other distractions of the game. I mean, he realized there was a responsibility for it, but pretty much his world was in that clubhouse with that team. When he took over as the president of baseball ops for the Giants, he touched base with everybody that was in his path, everybody in the front office. He made it a point to learn their names, to know their story. I mean, and I didn't think that we'd see him come back into the game. We always expected that we had always hoped that he would because of who he is and how he goes about living his life. But because of his family, we just felt that this was, yourself. I mean, you play many years as a player. When you get out of the game, you need to spend some time with your family. And we didn't think he'd come back into the game at this early of a date because of it. But when he took the assignment, I mean, he took it full bore. He was willing to put in the time. He was willing to put in and make the effort to make everybody in this organization feel special. And the way he surrounded him with people, you mentioned Dusty Baker, invaluable perspective in baseball, old soul. Zach Manassian, who was with the organization, he elevated him to general manager. And Zach, he knows everybody in the game. He was a kid. He was a clubhouse kid in Texas. His dad was a clubby. He knows everybody in the game. So when Buster went to the winter meetings, you look at Zach, and Zach knew everybody there he was dealing with. He knew who the guys were that were good to deal with, that weren't good to deal with. I mean, He brought Bobby Evans back, former assistant to Brian Sabian of that era, a general manager with the Giants himself. He brought back Randy Wynn and made him responsible for the minor league system. He brought back Jeff Berry, his agent who negotiates. So he brought back all of these people that had perspective, all voices that he respected, and the way he surrounded him with that circle, you thought, well, I mean, he's left no stone uncovered. And the fact that he realized that he didn't know everything, that he was willing to listen, that he learned to delegate and trust the opinion of those that he delegated to. I mean, he got to a pretty good place in a hurry. He still is telling you, I don't know everything. This is still something I'm learning. But he's earned a lot of respect in a very short time, I can tell you that.
Your skipper, Bob Melvin. I played for Bob when he was a rookie skipper in 2003 in Seattle. I enjoyed my time. He's had a ton of success in this game as a manager. Oakland A's, Padres, Diamondbacks. When he came back to San Francisco, it seems this year he's kind of caught his stride. Bob's always been a well-mannered, low key. He kind of brings a bit of calmness to the clubhouse. He's quirky, but at the same time, he's just I don't know, something about him. He just has that aura about him. With those championships, and the more I look at this, what a run you guys had, the 10, 12, and 14. That's like all-time stuff that doesn't just happen. Is that additional onus that gets put on whoever's the current manager of the San Francisco Giants?
It certainly does. And that's a good thing. I mean, they know the rules coming in. But consider Bob Melvin, who was born and raised in the Bay Area. And he understands the history of both teams in the Bay Area. And he respects it. I mean, he loved the A's. He loved the Giants when he was a kid. I mean, and I think most Bay Area fans are that way. They love both sides. I mean, there are a few of the faithful that won't agree with that, certainly. But Bob did. And you know, when he got brought into the Giants organization in 1986 as a rookie, Roger Craig took over with Al Rosen in 1985 in September. And what they realized, that, you know, you come into San Francisco, and I experienced this with the Cubs and the Phillies. As a pitcher, I'd look at my teammates, my hitters, and they start bitching and moaning about hitting at Candlestick Park about 2 weeks out, right? The Cubs bitched and moaned, the Phillies bitched and moaned. When I got traded to the Giants in '83, nobody bitched louder than the Giants. And when Rosen and Roger Craig took over, they said, from now on, there'll be no more negativity. This is the greatest home field advantage in sport. This is our true strength. Recognize it, embrace it, deal with it. And we did. And the combination of Rosen and Roger Craig, they were so good together. They backed each other up. They had an established philosophy that when we got there in 1986 in spring training, we didn't do a lot to bring in established big leaguers. We kind of improved ourselves with youth, Bob Melvin being one of them. And by the time we left spring training, we were on board. We had changed. We were a positive group. We believed in that team that we had. We opened up the season and went to Houston, a great team, and then we went to LA, a great team, and we won both series. And after losing 100 games, the only team in Giants history to lose 100 games, that's what happened to us in '85. We came back '86 and we opened up and started 4-2 and wound up finishing third, winning 83 games. And then next year we were in the playoffs. Bob Melvin experienced that. He witnessed it. He saw how Roger Craig and Al Rosen were together. Roger Craig told me when Bob came over, he said, this kid's going to be a manager in the big leagues one day. We saw the combination of Brian Sabian and Bruce Bochy in the era that won 3 world championships, and they were so strong together. And we saw the same thing with Brian Sabian and Dusty Baker, a great, great combination. They forged a strength together. When Bob Melvin took the helms last year, Farhan Zaidi had a different philosophy of how to play baseball than Bob Melvin. Melvin was a good soldier. He implemented the philosophy of of Farhan to the best of his ability, but it wasn't truly how Bob viewed the game of baseball, how he philosophized the game of baseball, how he teaches the game of baseball. And you can say the same thing for all of his coaching staff. When Buster Posey came back to the organization, took over the helm, and said, we're going to play baseball, I think that immediately forged the relationship between Melvin and Buster, because they both deeply, profoundly believe in the way that how the game should be played, and they agree upon it. And that is what has carried over into this organization now this year. Those two guys are very solid in the way that they feel this game should be played. It's being taught that way, and now it's being played this way, and the difference is in the standings.
Man, you go back and you were talking about Al Rosen, and that's always, when I hear that name, it makes me smile, because man, that was my grandfather's guy. I mean, he would talk about Al Rosen till he was blue in the face, and I'd hear it. So anytime I hear Al Rosen now, I think, that's Gramps. He's got a story about that particular situation. So it's always nice to hear that name when you bring it up. All right, let's get to the Giants. 12-5. Added a few pieces. Adames was the big free agent acquisition. You also brought in a Justin Verlander. See how much left he's got in the tank. We don't know, but his wisdom, his presence, I think, would add something to that clubhouse, if not anything else. What do you see? Let's go to the offense first of all. You got Lee back, who missed. He's the big free agent signed of 2 years ago. Coming over, got hurt a year ago. He's off to a great start. Wilmer Flores off to an unbelievable start, leading the league in homers and RBIs. And then you have a bunch of the guys that have been around there for a while. Yastrzemski, Chapman. What do you see out of this offense so far that's got them to the point where they are 12-5 as a start?
Well, they've adjusted. I mean, they're 2 strikes. I mean, they're taking swing out. They're using the opposite field beautifully. They're 2 out. Productivity of runners in scoring position, I think, is still leading the league, or at least it's close to it. And we're leading both leagues. And the other thing too is, I don't think that this team was ready to win last year because of the experience of their youth. And what we saw last year was Elliot Ramos come up and all of a sudden take that step to where he looked like he's going to be an everyday player. We started to see Luis Matos grow. We had Jung-Hoo Lee, a new player who was extremely exciting and everybody was pumped up about. Patrick Bailey, still growing as a player, understanding the strength level it takes for a catcher to finish a season. So all these young players were still trying to get to that level of strength and confidence that would allow them to be everyday players. And that all happened this spring. All those young players took another stride to be the big leaguers that we had hoped they would become. Now you bring in the experience of an Adames, and you have the experience of a Flores and a Yastrzemski and a Chapman. I mean, these are guys that are everyday guys. These are guys that have great presence in the clubhouse as well as on the field, and that example really had an effect on the younger guys. There was no easy way to get to be a good team. It was all hard work, preparation. Take the game home with you. Make sure you have a plan, that type of an approach. So that the older players were willing to make changes from what they had been taught or expected to do the last 4 or 5 years. They went back to the game. They went back to playing baseball. As evidenced by that comment from Yastrzemski. How you having fun? Yeah, we're playing baseball again. So this is what's happened to this club, and the very core of this success has been the willingness of the older players to change their game, so to speak, and that's a tough thing to do, but it really has had such a positive effect on everybody. We're a threat. Everybody coming off the bench has a plan, and it's a consistent plan. And I think that's, really why, they're off to a good start. That and Jung-Hoo Lee, who has, he hit, Jung-Hoo Lee, he hit the the comfort zone so quickly last year, but we only had him for 35 games. He was going to be good. And what he did in the absence when he was rehabbing and then he went in the offseason, he got stronger. He put on 7-8 more pounds up top, and he's a thicker guy. And now, I mean, he's ready to play every day. And, God willing, he stays healthy with this. But, boy, has he been positive. We have Chapman, Ramos, and Adames. They're all hitting under 220, under 210. They haven't even got hot yet, and this team's winning. So, I mean, it's and in the meantime, the other guys are picking up the slack, which, in the grand scheme of things is great. Now you feel like you have threat coming from everybody in the team.
I look at that starting rotation, and Webb at the top is always, for me, I'll take Webb anytime. I've been watching this kid for years. You got Hicks and Robbie Ray, who won a Cy Young a few years back, 3 or 4 years ago. Roop, and you got Verlander there. Verlander's, he's off to a start. I'm really interested to watch Verlander and his progression to do what he's done and get to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's tough pitching when you're over 40 years old, or is he at 40? Do you look at this staff and this bullpen, who's been really good thus far, for the long haul? Do you see it holding up?
Well, the bullpen anchors the staff. They did last year. I think that this staff can definitely hold up. Verlander's 42 years old. Verlander on any given day, 2 starts ago, we saw him, he gave 5 runs, but he pitched well. He kind of got bit with 1 inning and some ground balls found holes, but he struck out 9 with swing and miss strike threes. He had 23 swing and misses. And now he comes back 5 days later. Now, the problem with being 42 is, you don't always come back 5 days later. He pitched last night, and he struck out 1. But they weren't hitting the ball hard against him. So what does that tell you about Verlander? Well, even on days he doesn't have his great stuff, he knows how to pitch. So I look at Verlander, and I think that he has the ability to give you a chance to win every time he goes out there. He may not have stuff to strike or have guys swing and miss 23 times, but he's going to give you a chance to win. Plus, he's showing the younger guys how to win. How to pitch. Aaron Hicks or Jordan Hicks, he first came up with the Cardinals. He was a starter, but then he was 6 years in the pen. Now he's back. He wants to be a starter. They've given him the ball. He has a lot of things to learn still, but he can certainly give you a chance to win. What does a starting pitcher have to do now? He has to get you to the 5th.
5 innings. That's all they're grooming you for.
It's unbelievable. But Robbie Ray, a new changeup that has completely changed his look. He was not a 2-pitch guy anymore. He really had a great spring, and I expect him to have a good year. And then we have a Webb, of course, who, by the way, Webb this year, he really is showing signs of growth. He now, whatever he takes out there, he can give you a chance to win. When he's on, he can, completely dominate anybody. But even when he's not, like opening day in Cincinnati, he didn't have a stuff, but he went 5 innings and gave up 3. He gave him a chance to win. Yeah. That's something that he wasn't as good as in his previous years, but he's done that now. And then you have Landon Root, who's got great stuff. He just still hasn't gotten to the point where he believes that he can challenge with that fastball early, but he's going to be really good. And then we have a guy who's not even in the rotation, Hayden Birdsong, who is going to be, he's 23. He's going to be really good. He's in the pen right now learning how to do that. And we've got 4 or 5 guys down in the minor leagues right now who could come in and give you a chance to win. So I think that, yes, the rotation can hold up, but I do believe that the fact that they're being complemented by an extremely good bullpen, who most of those arms, came up through the Giants organization, that's what anchors this team. So I do think we have enough pitching to compete.
And what you say, the guys need to get it through 5. But Kruk, as you know, in your day, in my day, health is always important. But today it's at a premium. In 2025, guys are going down all over the place on the IL. I think injuries are more prevalent than they've ever been. So it is important, like you said, having a Birdsong learning right now in the bullpen, having some guys in the minor leagues that can step in, because depth, I think, in 2025, especially with the rotation, it's important to be beyond that 5th guy. Talking about Verlander, and I remember when they made the deal, and everybody thought, what do you think? He's old, he's this, he's that. I said, let me tell you about old, though. He's 42. He's not the Verlander when he was 32. But I remember facing Greg Maddux, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest pitcher, soup to nuts, I've ever faced consistently over the years. And I remember facing him late in his career when he was right there at 40. And I'll tell you what, he wasn't the Maddux I faced in the 90s in Atlanta, but he was no walk in the park because, as you said, he knew how to pitch. And even Maddux at 40 was a really good back end of the rotation, competent big leaguer, just because those Hall of Fame guys, those great guys that win the Cy Young, there's something special about them when they're 40. They're not a normal 40-year-old. They can still hold up, maybe not at the top of the rotation, but at the middle or the back of a rotation, especially on a team that can compete.
Give you a chance to win. I mean, what's hitting? Hitting is timing. What is pitching? It's upsetting the timing of that guy in the batter's box. I mean, one of the guys who, in fact, the guy on the Giants staff who has the least hard hit balls hit against him is the guy that tops out at 83, and that's Tyler Rogers, the Submariner. So, I mean, we get eaten up with the glamour of a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, but if it's in a good place for a hitter to hit it at the big league level, they're going to hit it. I mean, right. You know the deal. You shoot a 22 3 times through the freaking strike zone, and on that third bullet, that guy in the batter box is pulling it. I mean, that's just the way it is.
You know what gave me the most? The fits. I could care less about your velocity. Can you put it where you want, first of all? But what used to give me fits are those guys that had 4 or 5 different pitches, and they changed speeds. So I'd get to a 3-1 count, a 2-0, a fastball count. I didn't know if I was getting the 91, the 88, or the 85, all with the same arm motion. That's what gave me fits. That's what keeps balls off the barrel of the bat. Is not necessarily, okay, it's 3-0. I'm going to give you my 97. Who cares? As a hitter, bring it on. In the middle of the plate, 97, that ball goes a long way. But the guy that I got to that count and go, I don't know if he's going to throw me that good heater, that middle of the road heater, or take something off that BP fastball. Those are the things that drive hitters crazy because we don't know what's coming. We like predictability. I like to know what your fastball is, what the speed is, your two-seamer, your slider, your cutter. I've got that in my brain. And if they're consistent, I got a chance on all those pitches. But you start messing with the fastball velocities and just taking 4 or 5 miles an hour off, if you can, and still locate, that's what gives hitters biggest nightmares. And the biggest fits. That's really not talked about that much. We're, like you said, we're in an era where we get caught up in velocity and speed and spin rate. Sometimes to get me over curveball, get you to where you need to be for strike one when it's the last thing I'm thinking and expecting as a hitter.
It's again, we go back these last 10, 15 years. I mean, we've gone away from pitching, and we see guys come out of the minor leagues who are 21 years old, and there's 6 things they can do with the ball. They have high velocity, mid to high 90s velocity with 2 types of movement, a 2-seam and a 4-seam. They've got a curveball, a slider, a split, a changeup. They're sweeping the ball. They got 7 things they can do, which explains a lot of the reason why these arms break down the way they do. And they're asking them to go 4 innings, 5 innings. Go as long as you can, as hard as you can. They're not being allowed to pitch a 3rd time through the lineup. Why? Because the analytics say, well, these guys get, the opposing hitters hit 192 the first time through, 245 the second time through, 316 the 3rd time through. That's it. Where you learn to pitch is facing a big league hitter a 3rd and 4th time. Why? Because by the 3rd or 4th time, you can't outstuff that guy. I mean, Nolan Ryan could, okay? Everybody else couldn't. But that 3rd and 4th time through the lineup, that's when you learn how to mix speeds. That's when you learn the batting practice fastball between the fastball and the changeup. That's when you learn that a fastball from 4 seams and 2 seams is a completely different pitch. That's when you learn the importance of having the ability to establish a strike with a fastball in the inside corner early in the game so that that hitter has to think in or out with the fastball. If you don't establish that, he's only going to look one side of the plate. Analytics took that away from these guys. These guys want to have complete games. Do you know what? Verlander has 262 wins. I had 124. I had more complete games than him. I got 41 complete games. He has like 26. He has 9 shutouts. Why is that? I had 10. He's had twice the career I've had. He's a Hall of Famer. He hasn't been allowed to do it because of this era.
And think about it. Verlander is one of the last of this generation that still has the mindset that I'm giving you 8 because they're getting brought up through the minor leagues. And I always say this, it's not necessarily these young players' fault. It's the culture they're brought up in. They're taught 5, 5, 5. I don't think that's a great mindset. Now, that skipper might come and take you out after 5, but I think going into the game, having that mindset, I'm pitching 9 today. And maybe you get through 5. I think that's right. It's like a hitter wrapping one around the pole for a 3-run homer down the left field line. The worst thing as a hitter you can do is think about getting a pitch in or half and wrapping it around the pole down the left field line. But doing it, that's good. That's a 3-run homer. Thinking about it is bad. I think I liken that to a starting pitcher is, hey, I just got to give him 4 or 5. That's terrible. Giving them 4 or 5 quality innings, that's what they want. But the mindset I think needs to change is I'm going deep into this game and let's see what happens.
I think the 2 dirtiest words in baseball are pitch count. I mean, that has completely changed everything. And it starts in the minor leagues. If you sign out of high school and go play college baseball, I'm looking at the college game. These kids are being allowed to throw 110, 15, 25, 130 pitches. When you get to professional baseball, if you sign out of high school, no. Some organizations don't allow you to throw more than 70 pitches. They don't allow guys out of the bullpen to pitch 2 days in a row. They're so afraid that these arms are going to break down before they can get to the big league level that they overprotect them. And now you get to the big leagues, and you know when a guy's coming out of the game. This is 4th inning. He's got 81 pitches. He's got one more inning, maybe. Bob Miller was a pitching coach that I adored, and the one thing he used to always say, every time I would go out there and start a game, my goal was to throw a no-hitter. And if I gave up a hit, my goal was to throw a 1-hitter. If I gave up a hit, my goal was to throw a 2-hitter. I wanted to go and I wanted to close that game out, and I wanted to pitch 9 innings to give my bullpen a day off. That was my goal. And you have to, when you get to your, we watched it the other day with Hunter Green, had an unbelievable game, a shutout going against the Giants in Cincinnati. And this guy's got talent that is just off the charts. He's going to be a monster. And he got to the 9th inning, and we noticed in his stats that he had a complete game. Turned out it was a COVID complete game. It was a 7-inning complete game. He'd never been to the 9th inning.
You don't know what to do.
You have to learn how to throw the 9th inning. The 9th inning screws your whole rhythm up because you want to see how that book's going to finish. You want to read the chapter that says you won the game, or you want to get there in a hurry. And you have to learn how to control that. It's a different adrenaline and whatnot. But I feel sorry for these guys this generation. The most wonderful feeling I ever had as a starting pitcher was throwing a complete game. And I only did it 41 times in 13 years. So that ain't exactly Juan Marichal setting the world on fire with complete games. But I agonize over this generation of pitcher because they're being denied so much. They're being denied the knowledge to learn how to get big league hitters out when you don't have great stuff. Nobody better in the history of the game than Maddox. Nobody better in today's current game than Verlander. And I just think that having Verlander in the Giants organization is giving all of these young pitchers that are watching this guy, every move he makes, they're watching a guy with a PhD on how to upset timing of hitters, and they're learning so much with it. And those guys are dying off. So I don't know where the game's going to be. I hope that someday they take the pitch count and stick it up somebody's nose and walk away from it.
He's giving a perspective is what he's doing, and a different perspective, and I think the right perspective. I was at a Padre game the other day, and King pitched a 9-inning shutout, and I almost fainted. I just thought, wow, And I heard the whispers and he can't go past 110 pitches. And on his 109th pitch, he got a double play to end the game. And I was like, wow. And in today's game, in our generation, your generation, it wasn't a big deal. It was expected that when you had your good stuff and you were one of the main guys in the rotation, once in a while you were going to throw a 9-inning shutout. Once in a while, or you were going to pitch 9 innings and win the game. Today, it's like earth-shattering. That doesn't happen. It's like the no-hitter. When they first started with the no-hitters, the combined no-hitters, that was like taboo. How can you dare even think about having a combined no-hitter? Nowadays, that's the only way you get one. And if you had a real no-hitter, that would be front page news. I think it all started, and we'll move on after this. I think it all started, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, with back in the day with the Washington Nationals and an up-and-coming star and Steven Strasburg and how they started talking about him. And if they got to the postseason, they were going to shut him down because of pitch count. And I thought, do the people making these decisions have any clue how hard it is to get to the postseason? And if you're lucky enough to get to a World Series and have a chance to win, that's a once-in-a-lifetime thing? Everything isn't what you went through in San Francisco, winning 3 in 5 years. That doesn't happen to normal people. What the Yankees went through in the late 90s, that's stuff that's unicorn stuff. And I remember them talking about that with Strasburg. Yeah, if we get to the postseason for his future, we're going to shut him down. And I thought, you get to the postseason, that's when it's all hands on deck. We don't shut him down for his future. That's when I saw the game. When I heard that, that's when I really saw a change, especially when it came to starting pitchers.
I remember that like it was yesterday. And the guy who I felt sorry for? I mean, here's Strasburg, who's just going to be awesome, and you knew it. You saw him coming. I mean, he had everything, and he had the desire, and you knew he was going to have other chances. But what about the guy who's on his last year of his big league career, who was on that team? How about the guy that had, labored through 7 seasons, being the 25th man, and now he's in a position to do something for himself and his family that will give them, a pride that will never leave the family, to win a ring and plant a flag. And then all of a sudden, your organizational philosophy, it doesn't allow you to go into those playoffs with your complete team, and you fall short. I just thought that was such a tragedy, and I felt for that particular player. And I just, baseball is, to be on that platform, like you say, man, it doesn't happen. I'll tell you a Buster Posey story. In 2010, when they were pushing hard and they go into Philadelphia, and they, in order to get to win the National League pennant, you had to go through Philadelphia. And the Giants are in Philadelphia, and they win that series to go to the next round. And we're all in celebration there, and it was great because we got back to the hotel late there in Philly, and all the bars were closed, and our whole entourage was there, and they opened up this bar that they had, and they kept it open for 45 minutes. And at the time, Bill Newcomb was the president of the club, and he said, "Everybody go in and clean out your mini bars." So people went up to the room and got their pillowcases, and they filled it up with a mini bar, and everybody came down there, and it went on. The party was amazing and fun. Anyway, 4:00, my wife and I were heading back to the room, and we get on the elevator, and here comes Buster and a couple of guys. And as we're going up in the elevator, I said, "You guys, you got to enjoy this, because this doesn't happen very often." And Buster, who was in his first full year, he looks at me and he says, "Well, why not?" And I was like, it just doesn't happen very much.
Right.
Lo and behold, they go on to win 3 out of 5 years, which tells you a lot about Buster. But the point you make, man, it just doesn't happen. You're just not always aligned right. And what happened with Strasburg, I mean, I'll never forget that. I just felt that it was a tragedy.
Yeah, especially when you're young. I remember young, my first time in the play, I'm going to have plenty of opportunities. You're looking at the end of your career like, wow, winning a World Series is a big deal. And every year when that trophy is given out, I in a way, I sit there and I think, I hope these guys, especially the young guys, they appreciate how freaky of a position that is in, because you have played with, I've played with some unbelievable players that not only did they not win a World Series, they never got to go to a World Series. And these are some of the best players I've ever seen. So it is something pretty darn special. Let's talk about this division. I think coming out of spring training, I knew this was going to be a good division. Everybody knows Dodgers. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer as far as how good they are, how deep they are. They got stars all over the place. So we knew that. We knew the Padres probably going to be good. Yep, Musgrove goes down for them. Tanner Scott goes to the Dodgers. But they're off to an unbelievable start. Got the best record in baseball. I think looking at this season, I think the Diamondbacks improved. They're going to be better than they were a year ago. And then the Rockies are going to do what the Rockies are going to do for now until they get that thing figured out. But looking at this right now, it's the best division in baseball. Everybody's off to a tremendous start. Your thoughts, what you're seeing early on this division?
No surprises whatsoever, except for the Giants. People didn't really expect the Giants to do much more than get close to 500. And I don't know how the season is going to play out. I do know that they're a good team. The one thing in this division that I think is beautiful is the expectation that every organization has, the expectation that their fan base has. And I think that's what makes it a very special place to play. When the Dodgers did what they did, when they brought in Yamamoto and Sasaki and Ohtani and basically cornered the market on the Japanese player and just opened up the pocketbooks to keep this dream in LA afloat. You saw the success of their organization last year, and the expectation is that they're going to do something that the Atlanta Braves did, be on the doorstep every year, right? Well, they basically have done that for a decade. Well, they're trying to do it for 20 years and 50 years. I mean, that's just what they do. Well, that put pressure on the other organizations to up their game. You know, if you're part of the Padres or the Diamondbacks or the Giants this year, and certainly the Rockies will be back as they are developing and getting back in the fold, you have to have the same expectation. If you don't show up. And, the fan bases are what put the pressure on organizations to bring in players, to have a system that allows you to compete and say that you have a chance. And I love that about this division. It's going to be blood baseball. It already is. And here we are in April. We're having big, high adrenaline, big, high emotional series. And I can that's the way you want it when you're a big leaguer. You want that opportunity. You want that stage. And, when you're a good team, you look at the schedule and you say, well, the next 6 teams we're playing are all competitive. They're all teams that have a chance to be in the playoff run. This is going to be a real grind. You don't care if you're a good team. If you're not a good team, you care. You don't know how you're going to match up against a team. You hope you do good. When you're a good team, you don't care. And I think you can say that about all 4 teams that are at the top of this division right now. Nobody cares who they play. They all have a firm, profound, honest belief that if they play the way they're supposed to, they can beat anybody. And that's healthy, and that's entertaining, and that's great for baseball.
I think it's awesome too, the way the Giant-Dodger rivalry goes way back, but there's been a little rivalry now with the Padres and the Dodgers. I think you got multiple rivalries going on in the division, which I think makes the division so great. I think the National League East with the Mets and Cohen coming onto the scene and spending the money that he's spending, that's going to be kind of a crazy division with the Braves and the Phillies, and then that American League East with the Red Sox and the Yankees, and now the new look Orioles and Tampa Bay, who's a thorn in everybody's side. Nobody knows how they do it year in and year out with that budget. They're unicorns. I don't even try to decipher what's going on there, but there's a lot of great divisions going on right now. But I think that National League West is the most talented division, at least what I see on paper and thus far. Last one, I'll let you out of here. It's a different year. It's been forever, it's been the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants in the Bay Area. Oakland A's are no longer the Oakland A's. What has that been like as a Giant, being kind of a one-team market that's always been Oakland and the Giants?
Well, Bay Area fans are incredible. They don't forget, and it's going to be a long time for the Bay Area fans to forget the A's. It just is. And I don't know how the effects are going to be being the only team in town. I just know that it is such a tragedy that Major League Baseball allowed the A's to leave because of how the rivalry had developed between the Giants and the A's. Before interleague play, we had the Bay Bridge series at the end of every spring, and it was kind of a novelty, and everybody had fun with it. And then the '89 World Series came aboard, and that changed everything. The A's swept us in 4 games, and it gave bragging rights to Oakland forever, and they used it. And when interleague play came into effect, right away, those series between the Giants and the A's, once they meant something that was going in the standings, they were different. They were different than any other series. For the Giants, the Dodgers is obviously different than any. That's always a playoff game. And the A's became that. It became that type of a series. It was an unbelievable rivalry. It had grown every year. It meant something every year. And it had some hair on it. You didn't like to see the Giants lose to the A's, and the A's didn't like to see, or the A's fans didn't like to see their A's lose to the Giants. It was beautiful, and now it's gone. It'll always be something, I guess, to a degree, but it's not as intense as with them being in Sacramento and then 3 years going to Las Vegas. From the Giants' perspective, the most precious thing we have is our relationship with the Dodgers. That rivalry, that's unbelievable. And I'll tell you something about that really I never really considered. 1984, I'd been with the Giants organization my second year. Dusty Baker came over to us from the Giants, and we were talking about the rivalry. And I said, did you guys feel the rivalry in LA? He goes, not really. Not really? What do you mean not really? Well, you guys weren't a good team. Their rivalry was really Cincinnati when the Reds were dominant in the National League West. Remember, that was the Reds and the Giants and the Padres and the Dodgers and the Astros and the Braves. That was the National League West. Well, the point being from Dusty Baker, unless both teams are good, it's not a great rivalry. That's when it's good. The essence of the history of the game for the Giants, when they won 107 games, the most they'd ever won in their history. That same year, the Dodgers won more than they'd ever won in their history. And the Giants beat them out at game and won the division, 107 games, 106. That was the most fun I ever saw. It was so unbelievable. And so I'm getting completely off the beaten path, but the A's, it just, for me to watch that go away just really hurt me. And I think it hurt baseball. And I don't know how it all is going to unfold. I imagine, it'd be easier to get, sponsors across the Bay where you couldn't before. And I'm sure that's going to improve the situation for the Giants. It'll allow them to perhaps go and compete with more money eventually with free agents, et cetera. But there's a hole there that was there. Now it's gone. And that's the fact that they're gone. And that rivalry, I think, is really, really it took a punch right in the stomach. And I didn't like that.
It's weird because when they played that last game at the Coliseum last year, we had some pretty good rivals in the early 2000s with the Mariners and the A's. Both we were the best division in baseball. They had some great fun teams, and I had a lot of memories in that Coliseum. Everybody doesn't like the Coliseum. Kruk, I liked hitting there for some reason. When we were going to Oakland, I'm like, yeah, okay, you guys could talk about how shitty of a place this is, but I get hits and I like it. I didn't think I was going to be affected at all. What do I care about the Oakland Coliseum? And, I played there 15 years ago. But that final day, I just happened to be watching, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm watching the kind of a little bit of a ceremony at the end of the day. And it's not like I was have a tear in my eye, but it made me kind of think back and go, wow, this is kind of sad right here. As much as everybody likes to talk about the Coliseum, and it's not, back in the day, back in your day, Coliseum was nice. It was a fun place. It kind of looked like Dodger Stadium when it was open. But I just kind of had a minute where I'm like, this is wrong. This is the Oakland A's leaving Oakland. That doesn't happen. And as much as we don't like the Coliseum, it's sad that this is the last game they're going to play there. So as an ex-player, I kind of even had a moment when I thought the last thing on earth that I would be affected by was that Oakland Coliseum. You know what's weird? It's sitting right here. Because my son-in-law at the time, he's now playing for the Braves, but he played for the A's last year. And I told him, I called him up and I said, get me some dirt from the Coliseum. What I got? I got the dirt.
Yeah.
It's sitting right here. It's weird that it's sitting here. I didn't set that up because you were coming on or anything, but I haven't put it away yet. But I didn't think I was going to be affected at all. I never was an Oakland A. I never was a Giant. Had a lot of fun in those cities, playing baseball. But it kind of hit me that day, and nothing that I ever thought. I didn't even plan on watching that game. I just happened to be on the couch flipping around, and the ceremony. I saw the last out for that young kid Miller that closes. I think it's Miller.
Yeah.
Anyway, he closed the game out, and then they had the ceremony, and I stayed there and I watched the coverage, and I just thought, that's kind of sad. So I completely understand where you're coming from. A guy that's played there and been there forever. It's going to hit you a little harder than it was going to hit me, but it did. Nevertheless, it did affect me, a guy that never played there or had a part of those organizations.
Well, going in there as an opposing player, their fans were different.
Oh, they're mean.
And
they can be mean,
but they were very cool as well. They were funny, and they had some attitude, and they had some. They entertained themselves, and they had their team taken away. Oakland just got massively dumped on with their football team and their baseball team. It was as good as those people were and how they supported. To see that happen to them, it was wrong. It was truly wrong.
Well, Kruk, I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. It went a lot longer than we thought it was going to be, but sometimes when you get a good conversation, it's well worth the wait. Glad you could stick around. For those of you watching the Bret Boone podcast, we now have our own YouTube channel. Check it out. For those of you listening, download this podcast wherever you download your podcast or the Odyssey app. And until next time, keep it here.